Mayor Bill de Blasio laying blame for the scuttled deal between Amazon and New York City at the feet of, not surprisingly, of Amazon itself.
Amazon just took their ball and went home. And what they did was confirm people's worst fears about corporate America. Here's the 1% dictating to everyone else, even though we gave them a fair deal. And I think it's going to frustrate people all over this country to see a company treat a neighborhood and a city like that.
We haven't spoken. We're just in a nutshell, what the whole scenario that we saw play out, how do you view it?
Well, I agree with much of that. I got to say, if I were a significant shareholder in Amazon, I would be very angry at them. Their feelings got hurt, and they spent a lot of money and a lot of energy and took a hit in terms of their reputation. And by the way, people don't always separate that out. Amazon and then the Facebook report that you just talked about from the United Kingdom, this is going to further fortify resistance even when there shouldn't be resistance. My view is that the Amazon should not have pulled out, and they should have been more politically flexible, and it does show a kind of arrogance that they were offended that anybody questioned them. I believe from what I read that the deal was going to go through as proposed. I do think it shows two other problems. One is this situation we have. Louis Brandeis, the great Supreme Court justice, was in favor of the states doing things because they were laboratories to show how policies could work. But in the modern era, with the absolute mobility of capital, you can't do laboratories if the specimens can move to a different laboratory. If you're trying to do an experiment and the people you're people you're experimenting on say, I don't like your experiment, I'm going over here where they'll feed me better and I'll have nicer places. I hope maybe through the tax system we could do something to prevent this outrageous spectacle where the richest people in the country extort from some of the poorer people more favors.
Congressman,
and if you're the local government, you can't avoid that. I think it has to be done nationally.
Congressman, I've thought about this issue, about the idea of effectively nationally somehow trying to outlaw incentives, especially, again, when you look at a profitable company like Amazon, you say to yourself that something seems wrong here, and yet it feels almost anti-progressive, we talked about in the last hour, because ultimately it wouldn't level the playing field. It would actually make it more complicated for the areas of the country that are struggling the most, that don't have the educational or economic ecosystem to attract companies. I'm thinking of what's happened in the South, in terms of South Carolina and Tennessee and elsewhere. These were areas that created incentive systems to bring Volvo, Boeing, all sorts of companies to places that didn't have industry. And if they didn't have that opportunity, if we effectively created either a tax system or a law that prevented these things from happening, I wonder whether we'd create actually even more inequality. The coast would actually get even more of the headquarters of these companies, and we'd leave large parts of the country empty. And that's not to say I'm for corporate welfare at all. I hate the whole idea. And if you have a solution, by all means, let's do it. But I can't figure out what would happen if we said it couldn't happen.
Two things. First of all, I agree with much of what you said, but the fact is that those places that were attracted to the South have not come from the coast. They've come from the Midwest. They've come from the Rust Belt. So this has not been a case where the companies on the whole have left the wealthier areas and gone to the poorer areas.
I'm thinking more of BMW, Mercedes, foreign companies that came here.
I'm sorry, let me finish. You talked about Volvo. You talked about auto. The auto industry is a great example. The focus geographic of the auto industry has shifted from the Midwest to the South. And that's true of a lot of the other places they've taken. As to what you can do, there are two things. First of all, you could have some tax penalties, which could apply. Secondly, and this is very important, it's one of the biggest differences between the parties, and frustrating to me that working people get attracted to the Republicans sometimes in their to their detriment. And that's collective bargaining. It's unions. And one of the reasons that people have moved out of the industrial Midwest to the South was to avoid unions. It's one of the reasons the foreign companies that have come into the South. If we were to pass national laws, if we were to be more protective of the rights of men and women who vote in the majority to do that, to join unions, you would reduce that incentive to move from middle income areas to poor areas, so then you get poverty in the middle income areas.